informative and contains my opinion and understanding of the subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to whoever's joining me right now. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. So let's start. So we're going to start by talking about the surviving roommates text messages, you guys. Okay. So around 4:22 a.m. on November 13, 2022, Dylan Mortensen texts Bethany Funke about seeing a masked intruder in her off-campus home. She expressed confusion and fear, stating that calls to her roommates went unanswered. Funke advised Mortensen to run to her room. These messages are going to provide insight into the immediate reaction of the survivors during the incident. Okay. The chilling text conversation provides the first insight into what was communicated between the two surviving roommates at the King Road residence on November 13, 2022, when Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, and Ethan Chapin were M-word. I know. I'm always afraid that YouTube's going to punish me if I say it. Before this, Mortensen had described to investigators that the masked intruder she encountered that night was, she estimated him to be at least 5'10", which she's 5'10". So I think she said something along the lines of, he's at least as tall as me, if not taller. So I think that's where they get 5'10" or taller. But anyway, recently unsealed court documents also included details on the 911 call made at 11:58, nearly 7 hours after the victims were fatally stabbed. So did you guys notice that I made Maddie's name pink because it's her favorite color? It's my favorite color too. And Ethan's the boy in blue. So there you go. All right, so here goes. The text messages are beginning at 4:19. So this slide right here is 4:19 a.m. to 4:21 a.m. Okay, so at 4:19, Dylan Mortensen attempts to contact all four roommates. Okay, so she calls all four roommates. She doesn't call Ethan at this time. She does eventually, but not at this time. Okay. So she calls the four roommates and nobody answers. So, and think about it, you guys, it's one thing to text all four roommates. She literally had to go through each one of their phone numbers. I mean, is there like a group call? I don't know. I'm old. Maybe there is. But I think the way that it reads, it seems as though she calls each one of them. No one answers. So at first, she did not get a response from any of the roommates. However, Bethany Funke eventually responds at 4:22 a.m. Or BF eventually responds. And I'm going to show you next what happens. Okay, so this is 4:22 to 4:24 a.m. So obviously it's Funke. No one is answering. Sorry, no one is answering is what DM texts BF at 4:22 a.m. Okay, I'm really confused right now is clearly what she's saying. And then DM to Kaylee. So first she texts Bethany twice. Again, I don't know if she calls Bethany and then texts Bethany and then texts Bethany again, and that wakes Bethany up. So first she gets a phone call, then a text message, then another text message, and maybe that's what wakes her up and gets her calling. Okay, all right. So we have DM to Kaylee. She writes Kaylee, and then DM to Kaylee again. What's going on? So BF finally responds to DM at 4:22. Yeah, dude, WTF, what the fuck? So BF then responds again and says Xana was wearing all black. Okay, so this is where does this come from? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, dude, what the fuck? And then Xana's wearing all black. But let's keep going. All right, the text messages continued. So from 4:22 to 4:24, we are missing text here too, in my opinion. So we're just going to read them the way that they have them in the court documents. So from DM to BF says, I'm freaking out right now. DM to BF, no, it's like a ski mask almost. He had something over his forehead. So I don't think she means forehead. I think she meant he had something over his forehead and little around the mouth. So I'm assuming that she's talking about one of those ski masks. BF, I'm not kidding. I'm so freaked out. So for 4:22 to 4:25 a.m., BF to DM, so am I. So then DM says to Bethany, my phone is going to die. Fuck. Okay. And then BF responds, come to my room. And then she responds again, run. Responds again, down here. How many of you think that it's I'm screwed though? Tell me, what did you think that says? Do you think that says I'm screwed though, or I'm scared though? I think it says I'm scared though, because she's saying, my phone's about to die. Fuck, that's her lifeline right now. Without her phone, she has no other communication to the outside world. So Bethany's telling her, come to my room, which is downstairs. Run down here. She's telling her, get down here now. And DM's that sounds great and all, but I'm scared. I'm scared though. So I would like to know what you guys think. I'm going to look for people that are, pro burgers or whatever, they're using these words. They're saying I'm screwed though, so that they could say that gives some sort of malicious intent on DM's on DM, like as if DM is saying like I'm screwed, like she was doing something shady. That's the only reason why I do think this counts, and that's the reason that I jumped on here too, because that I can't stop everybody saying I'm screwed though, and I'm like, why isn't anybody reading this? I'm scared though. She's clearly scared. She tells her I'm freaking out, and then Bethany says so am I, stuff like this. So for anybody out there that's saying I'm screwed though, and then making it seem like DM is something to hide, shame on you. Like, I also hear people blaming her for not calling the cops right away. And you guys have to remember, her and Bethany were the new people in the house. So Kaylee and Maddie were about to graduate. So they were about to like move on and, go live their lives and do their things by the end of the year. So I believe Kaylee's was in December, and then Maddie was to graduate in May. So either way, they were newcomers to the group, or to the house rather. So I think that to just say, oh, I'm going to call the cops because I hear stuff, I don't know. I wouldn't have done that. I'm just being honest. My first thought would have never been to call the cops. I would have called my roommates. I'm also trying to think through the mind of a 20-year-old and not a 46-year-old who has 26 more years experience. So try to remember back when you were 20 years old and imagine how scared she must have been. She literally opens her door, and from what we've heard, and we don't know if this to be true yet, but from what we've heard, she literally yells out the second time, shut the fuck up, because she's trying to sleep. And then she looks out for the third time and sees this guy that she's never seen in her life. We know that she's seen enough to be able to say, how tall he was. She was able to tell us his build. She was able to tell us he was white. She was able to tell us he had bushy ass eyebrows. I don't think she said ass, I did, but he had bushy eyebrows, right? Okay, so then BF says to DM, yeah, I know, but it's better than being alone. So she's telling her like, I know you're scared, just come down here though, just run down and we'll be together type thing. And that's exactly what we believe she does. And she goes down to the first floor where she stays with Bethany for the rest of the night, or at least that's what we all believe, right? Who knows what she thought, but I don't think she thought that there was a quadruple, homicide occurring while this was happening, or she would have called 911, I would hope. Okay, so it was easy to dismiss the stuff she heard, and nobody wants to be the house snitch. Oh God, nobody wants to be a snitch, period, right? Cops had already threatened $300 tickets the next time they were called out. Another great 24 a.m. Dylan calls Ethan Chapin and gets no response. So I think this is important. So she winds up, she pretty much stops with the text messages by this point. We also remember that by this point, he's already left for about 4 minutes. So the house was, loud, or she knew things were happening for about, what did they think it was? About 12 minutes or 12 to 15 minutes. I think more like 12 minutes-ish. And then all of a sudden, everything just stopped. DM calls at Xana with no answer. And then at 4:32, DM text, that should say text, not test. See again, you guys, I'm in teacher mode. Text Kaylee, please answer. So, this is like her last ditch effort. So there's almost 10 minutes of silence, right? So if we go back real quick, they tell her it had to be before 4:25, where she says, I'm scared though. And she says, okay, well, it's better than being alone. So I'm assuming this is around 4:25. And then, so you guys, I didn't notice that till right now. So in the papers, I literally did exactly what the paper said. And it was just confusing to me, which is why I rewrote it, because I'm like, if I'm getting confused by this, so are other people. So look at this. So this is in the actual documents, it says 4:22 to 4:25 a.m. And then over here, we have 4:24. So I wonder if Dylan calls Ethan. You guys, could you imagine if she called Ethan and heard his phone ringing? But nobody's answering, because at this point, there's no more, everything's done. He's gone. Everybody's unfortunately, not living anymore. So what if she calls Ethan at 4:24 from her bedroom? Because it says that she goes downstairs. This is at 4:25 a.m. So she's still in her room at 4:24. So she must have called Ethan from her bedroom. Then she calls Kaylee at 4:27. I don't know if she goes downstairs yet. Could you imagine? Oh my God, how scary is that? So, all right, so let's keep going. All right, so the next morning, this is where I have questions to you guys. And again, I am not by any means, I think it's disrespectful to, accuse these kids of anything. My question to you is, so the next morning at 10:23, DM is awake because she texts Kaylee, please answer, right? And if you guys look, the night before at 4:32 a.m., she texts Kaylee, please answer, and it's spelled the exact same way. So I don't know if she just copy and pasted it again, or if she just wrote it the same way again, but she writes the exact same text. And then she texts Maddie, are you up? And then text Kaylee again. Are you up? Question mark, question mark. So now you can tell she's probably getting like a little bit more anxious, right? So at 10:24 a.m. until 11:39 a.m., you guys, what do you guys think was happening? Because the next thing in the document says that 11:39 a.m. she texted her dad, and the text starts with BF. So I don't know if it starts with BF or Bethany, but in the document it says BF, and then it like just kind of, you could see like a redacted part or like a blank spot, and then it goes to the next line. So what do you guys think they were doing from 10:24 to 10:39? And again, doesn't matter. No, not at all. But do you think they were just like laying in the bed talking, or, like what was happening for over an hour? Do you guys know what I mean? And again, there is no criticism here. I'm not saying this from, a critical way. But if I was talking to my daughter and I was like, Jay, you're texting them at 10:23 and the cops don't get called till almost 12, right? So at 10:24, we know they're awake. I was under the assumption until I read this that they slept until like 11:50-ish type thing. And I was fine with that because they didn't go to bed till 4:30. So if you do 8 hours, that's 12:30, right? So to me, that wasn't like, oh, you're sleeping all day. Again, I put myself in their age range again. But you wake up at 10:24, does she fall back asleep? Like, what do you guys think happens? Do you think Bethany's up? Because this is another thing. This all looks like Dylan's text messages. Is this, like, where's Dylan's, where's Bethany's stuff? Like, does Bethany text anybody the next day? Maybe not. I don't know. But it doesn't say anything like for any further about Bethany. So she winds up having this text conversation with her dad from 11:39 till it doesn't say. So it doesn't tell you when her and her dad stop texting. But then from 11:50 to 11:51, DM receives a text from Jay that says, bro. And another one, and 1 minute later gets another text. But in the next text, they don't tell you what Jay says. So who do you guys think Jay is? And again, they keep telling us when DM is sending text messages, this was somebody else texting in, bro. And then they go to text them again. They text her again a minute later. So she's calling at the time, EA, I can't think of the girl's name, but this is the girl that lives next door, right? And the one that they got the camera from, am I correct about that? So if so, this was the girl next door who I believe was dating Ethan Chapin's best friend, Hunter, at the time. I don't know if they're still dating, but if I got that wrong, somebody please correct me, because that's not what I'm not trying to spread disinformation. So over here, you guys, now we go from 11:39 to 11:50. And that's not a lot of time, but it's still 11 minutes. So like, what's going on? So my interpretation of this, the only thing I could think of is because I don't know of anybody who's Jay. Now, there are like a bunch of Jacks and stuff like that. So I don't know, is this one of the Jacks and they put Jay, and they don't put a last name or anything. They just put Jay. However, I then thought about it, and does she have siblings maybe? Could this be a sibling that maybe when she, as she's texting her dad, or could this be somebody that her dad's like with at the moment, and she's texting back and forth with her dad saying like, Dad, I think we heard something and now nobody's answering and da. And, if I'm sitting here right now and that's happening and my best friend's sitting next to me or my husband, or, I might be like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this. Gianna just said blah, blah, blah. And then he might text her and be like, yo, what's happening? So could that have been it? Because again, I see a lot of YouTubers trying to make this a conspiracy as well. So they're like, how does this Jay person know that something's going on? He clearly knows, or she clearly knows something's going on, because they text her 2 minutes in a row, bro, and then text her again. In the second text, they redacted. So we don't even know what Jay says. But again, my interpretation is nothing as sinister as that. So I appreciate you all, and I hope I see you all Monday night at 7:30 Eastern. Good night, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Well, I saw that Truth heard something. You live in a house that parties a lot. Yes, you're in a house where you don't know everyone that comes in and out, visiting other roommates. Yes, that's what I was going to say. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you said that. So when I had roommates, I would come back to my room or my apartment, and there would always be people there, always, that I didn't know. So I always knew a lot of the people there, but it wasn't abnormal. And it wasn't abnormal for me to bring over people that my roommates didn't know. You know what I mean? And that I had to introduce them to. So think about it that way. Like, you're just going to call 911 because you see a guy in the house. Like, I don't think people are remembering that these are college age kids that are living in a house together, that they just had a party Saturday night, right? So like, I don't know. I think if anything, she might have thought maybe, you know, that was one of Ethan's friends or something, or surveilling. And again, I want to get into those words again on another live. So I have to remind myself of that by saying it here. But I want to talk about the stalking thing. Both parties said that there was no stalking. I did say in one of my videos, that's fine. They both said, like they said, yeah, there was no stalking. But in my video, I also said that I have a feeling that they're talking about stalking in the legal sense. So not in the social sense. So I don't know about you, but if somebody was surveilling you, meaning that you don't know that you have somebody watching you, that would be more like surveillance and less like stalking. With stalking, I would assume, and again, please correct me if you disagree, but I would assume that with stalking, there's like terror behind that, right? Because the person often knows that they're being stalked. People did say that Kaylee thought that she was being stalked, but I thought that they said that they did follow-ups and they weren't able to put those two things together. So that's why I'm saying I maybe they weren't stalked, but in my opinion, they were surveilled.